Hello, my name's Bob. Welcome to another video from the White Dog Garage YouTube channel. This video is the first of a two-part series on building a router table. The first part is going to be about the modifications that I've done to a plunge router to make it work on the table, and the second part will be marrying that plunge router to the new table that I will be building for it. And I hope you follow along. When you're going to make a router table, one of the first things you've got to consider is the router. Now, looking on YouTube, a lot of the routers that are used are trim routers, and I've just recently acquired a Makita trim router, and I certainly don't want to sacrifice it to the table. But I do have a 1/4 inch chuck plunge router that I am prepared to sacrifice to the table. This router is made in China. It's marketed by a local tool company, Trade Tools, under their Renegade brand. I've had it a number of years. It's a really good unit. Being a plunge router, of course, it works by plunging the head down into the work. Has a depth stop here if you want to set the depth, and at the back here it has a lock to hold the depth if you want to continuously route at a particular depth. To convert this for use on the bench router, I need to do something about the height adjustment. It's not that easy, as I've found in the past, to use plunge routers as a bench router. However, what I'm going to do is fit it with a screw adjuster, and I've got for this purpose a socket head screw that I've especially lengthened the thread on to suit, and this screw will go in place of the old height adjuster, and by screwing it in or out you'll be raising or lowering the height of the router head. The first thing I did was remove the locking screws, plunge depth stop and foot cover from the router. Next, I cut out a rectangular piece of 3mm thick plate steel to use as a table mount for the router. I found and marked the centre of the plate using intersecting diagonals, and then marked the positions for the 4 screws that will attach the plate to the router foot. The 4 screw holes are being drilled at a diameter of 5mm. After each hole, I swap the drill for a countersink bit, ensuring the heads of the screws will be at or below the plate surface. After drilling the holes for the 4 mounting screws, I then used a hole saw to cut out a 44mm diameter centre hole. Back at the bench, I attach the plate to the router foot. Off camera, I have drilled 4 additional holes on the outer edge of the plate. These will be used to secure the plate to the top of the router table. Using the old depth stop bracket as a guide, I use a transfer punch to mark the position on the foot where the new adjuster screw will pass through. As I will be drilling this hole from the other side, I place the unit on a flat surface and determine the distance from the transfer punch mark to each side of the mounting plate. Having positioned and clamped the router with the mounting plate uppermost on the mill table, I then use the vernier calipers to mark the position on the face of the mounting plate for the hole. The socket head on the screw I will be using for height adjustment is a fraction under 16 mm in diameter and 10 mm long. I'll be using a 16 mm slot mill here to drill down the 10 mm recess through the mounting plate and into the alloy router foot. Run into a problem, and here is what it is. In my desire to make the mounting plate for the router table as fully mounted as I could on the base plate of the router, I drilled 4 holes, marked out and drilled 4 holes and set them up to hold the 4 screws to the plate. I guess my theory was that 4 screws are better than 3, but I've run into a snag because I'm hitting one of the holes with the mill, and it's a plastic body to the router. I have it reasonably well clamped, but the vibration is such that I am getting chatter in the mill, and I'm also getting a bigger hole than I want to create. Now, I can't really tighten up further on the body of the router. The router's plastic and it'll break something. So I have to go about it a different way. The easy answer, and I've thought about it, is to just undo the plate, mark the holes on the other side, flip it over of course, and then secure it on steel spacers secured to the table and machine the hole then. When I've got that done, I can remount it on the router and then go back to doing the hole for the adjustment bolt, and that's what I'm going to do. With the mounting plate secured, the slot mill cuts a hole exactly where it needs to be. With the plate back on the router and the router fixed to the table of the bench mill, the hole in the plate acts as a guide for the slot mill as it cuts the adjuster screw head recess to depth. In case you are wondering, I use WD-40 as the cutting fluid for aluminium, which is what the router foot is made of. Here I use a micrometer to check the depth of the hole, confirming it is indeed 10 mm. Then, leaving the mill head in position, I attempt to drill a smaller hole through the rest of the router foot. This hole is where the threaded part of the screw will pass through the foot. Again, my mounting is not secure enough for the hole to be drilled. However, I get around this by using the lathe to make a bushing 16 millimeters in diameter with a 10 millimeter diameter center hole. Fitting this bushing to the recess for the head of the screw adjuster, I then drill the holes through for the screw. It does not matter now if the mounting plate moves a bit, as the drill will be held in the correct position by the bushing. Here I am using a tap to produce a metric 10 mm diameter by 1.5 mm pitch internal thread in the existing depth stop bracket on the router body. Again, I'm using a bushing to make sure that the shaft of the tap remains concentric with the adjuster screw hole in the foot. It has taken more work than I expected, but finally I can fit the adjuster screw to the router. Having machined through where one of the mounting screws went, my next job is to drill and tap a new hole further over on the router foot so that I can fit a new mounting screw. With the mounting plate refitted, I can now test the modification. In practice, I expect I will be only using a portion of the travel in this new adjustment mechanism. So, that's the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click like and share it amongst your friends. Part 2 is going to see us put this modified router together with this pile of wood to create a nice router table for the White Dog Garage workshop. And if you haven't already subscribed, think about subscribing now so that you know that when part 2 comes out, which will be in about 2 weeks' time. However, if you do subscribe, don't forget to ding the bell down below so that you get a reminder from YouTube when part 2 comes out. Thank you once again for watching.